Hi there. Today I'd like to talk to us about when pressure reveals a pattern, what to do first. So go ahead, center yourself. Get comfortable. You know, my friends, there's a moment most leaders recognize, not always in the middle of the pressure, but sometime after, when the dust has settled and you're honest enough with yourself to notice it. I have been there before. Not if you've been there as well. Not the circumstance, not the exact crisis or conversation or loss, but the response, that reach, the familiar way your body, your mind, and your heart move through it the same way they always do. And you know what, my friends? Something in you quietly begins to wonder. Is this pattern still working for me, or is it simply the one I know? If you have sat with that question or for just a moment, then this conversation is for you. Are you ready? Pull up a chair. Come on, let's have a conversation. You know, there are times when you schedule a difficult conversation and then reschedule it. Or you set the boundary and then quietly walk it back when someone pushes. Or you tell yourself you let it go and then bring it up 3 weeks later in a conversation or during a meeting where it has no business being. You know that pressure. What you may not yet know is that there is something that's protecting that pressure. And you may say, Dr. Lee, I make an honest effort to do things a new way, and still the moment real pressure arises, something familiar takes over. The same response, the same reach, the same cycle. I have been there before as well. The circumstances are not always predictable, but that pattern, it seems to stay right where it is. If you have ever had that quiet, honest moment of asking yourself, what is going on with me? Then this episode is for you. I have had those moments too. Those small but unmistakable reminders that I cannot respond to pressure the way I once did, and that something in me is asking for a different approach. And my friends, at a certain point in life, or relationships, or leadership, and our sense of calling, it begins to ask something new of us. Not harsher response or passive response or louder responses, just wisdom, the kind that comes from recognizing the season we're actually in. So today I'd like to talk to us about why getting intentional about how we handle pressure as we navigate the seasons of our life, and leadership can feel different than it used to. And I'd like to offer you something simple and honest about what to do first if you're ready to see that pattern more clearly and respond to it in a much more wiser and sustainable way. By the end of this episode, you will have a simple place to begin, not a full overhaul or intervention, just one wise step you can take with the life and the season that you're already in. That is my hope for us today. And I'm claiming that for myself as well. So welcome, my friends. Welcome back to the Achieve Intentional Transformation podcast. I'm Dr. Leonie H. Mattison, and it is truly a gift to be on top of the earth with all of you today. Now, before we go further, I want to say this clearly. I am not a therapist, and this conversation is not medical advice, mental health treatment, or clinical counseling. It is not a substitute for professional care. If you are in crisis or navigating depression, anxiety, trauma, or distress that feels unmanageable, please reach out to a qualified professional, a trusted physician, or a licensed mental health provider, or emergency support in your area. Because what I offer here is reflection, leadership wisdom, and a framework for paying attention to your life with greater intention. And so I am so glad that you're here today. I have my little bird friends running around me. They distracted me there for a moment. So glad to see all of them. Now, there is something I believe many of you all already know. Most of us at this stage of our life in leadership are not looking for another framework, another tool, another 5-step approach to fix the pattern that keeps showing up when we're under pressure. I want to recognize and honor that I know that you've explored tools, read the books, examined the methods, made the declaration that sounds genuinely promising for a few days, but somehow does not become your most effective, peaceful, or intentional way of moving through pressure. Now, here is what I know after decades of leadership, and I'm still learning, is that if a solution requires you to become a completely different person by Monday morning, it was never a solution. It was pressure wearing a costume of growth. And I say that because I remember times when I told myself, Leonie, I'm going to change how I respond to pressure at home, at work, in my leadership, in my relationship, all at once. And you may have done something similar. And perhaps like me, you discovered that kind of wholesale reinvention can feel energizing for a short while. And then when real unplanned disruption arrives, a diagnosis, a relationship that fractures, a partnership that quietly dissolves, or a single stressful phone call that knocks the wind completely out of your sail. And there it is again, that pattern that we reach for to respond to pressure. So instead of asking, how do I change how I respond to pressure? I want to offer you a gentler, more honest question. And that is, what is this pattern actually revealing about how I respond to pressure? And here's what that pattern is most often revealing, is showing you the gap between the leader you were trained to be and the leader the season is actually asking you to become. Not a worse leader or a diminished one or a different one. And that gap, that tension between who you were and who you are becoming is asking you to accept the invitation. Because how you respond to pressure, what we reach for, what we default to, always reveals something. And I have found that paying attention to that revelation, especially during the seasons of life where it matters most, has everything to do with your peace, your strength, your clarity, your rest, and ultimately your calling. Your ability to show up clear-minded, calm, steady, to serve the people that you're entrusted to care for, it matters. It truly does. And I've learned that over the years of being a mother, a leader, and now a grandmother. So I am on this learning path with you as well. I want to tell you about an afternoon I will never forget. I had just come out of hours-long meeting. You know, the kind where everyone in the room is exhausted, brilliant, but exhausted, deeply invested, and everyone wants a different outcome. The tension had been building, the stakes were real, the decisions were consequential. And when it was all over, Dr. Lee needed some air. Yes, I did. And so I took my shoes off. I was at my car, took my shoes off, and literally I took them off and walked barefoot outside, because sometimes the only way to get grounded is to actually touch the ground. And so I was walking, breathing, trying to release the tension from the session, the version of the outcome I had been carrying that afternoon. I was trying to just let it all go. And right as I turned the corner, a bird pooped on my head. Yes! And it rolled down my face. It was warm. And it hit my shoulder and it messed up my dress. I stood there for a moment in complete disbelief. I didn't know what to do. And so I started laughing until I cried. Not a polite, composed executive laugh, a real, full, involuntarily laugh, and the kind that comes from somewhere deeper than the situation calls for. My soul needed that laugh that afternoon. And in that moment, something shifted. Not the meeting, not the tension, not the unresolved decisions waiting on my desk, but something in me let go completely and without permission of the grip that I had been holding all afternoon. And I thought of something Joseph Campbell once said, and I'm paraphrasing it because I want to be accurate with you, because I think C.G. Jung talks about this too. Through life, when we're following our path, birds will poop on us. Don't bother to brush it off. Getting a comedic view of your situation gives you a spiritual distance, and having a sense of humor serves you well as a leader. That bird did not care about my title, my gender, my carefully constructed response to the pressure I was carrying. It simply reminded me that I was a human being walking on the earth, and that sometimes the most healing thing that we can do for ourselves as leaders is to be completely present with what has shown up for us in the moment. That laugh was a release. That laugh was a reset. That laugh was in its own way a ridiculous sacred pause that I needed. And that is exactly what we're talking about today. Not a perfect, planned, scripted response to pressure, but the wisdom to recognize when something, even something simple, is inviting you to stop gripping, stop performing, and simply get real with the season that you're in. Just recognize it, honor it. And so I'd like to pull from the thread system to walk you through 3 simple practices drawn from the THREAD thread system, not as a curriculum to complete, but as a gentle, honest entry point for leaders who are ready to respond to pressure with more intention. Practice 1, T, think deeply before you react. This is an inward shift towards discernment, stillness, and truth-seeking that has saved my life many times. Many leaders, and particularly women in leadership, we carry this quiet guilt about how we're supposed to feel under pressure, about aging capacity, about the ways our energy and resiliency feel different once it did. And so when pressure arrives, we speak to ourselves in ways we would never speak to someone we love. And that kind of self-pressure, it may push us forward for a moment, but it does not nourish the soul. It does not strengthen the mind or settle the spirit for the kind of transformation we are actually after. So think deeply anchors the first practice of the thread system in what I call a sacred pause. Before action, slow down. Before reaction, get quiet. Before deciding, discern what is truly happening beneath the surface of the pressure you're navigating. Maybe for you, taking off your shoes might help. For me, it helps me because it reminded my body that it's okay to be in the moment. There's a scripture that I often return to. It's in Psalms 46, verse 10, and it says, cease striving and know that I am God. Now, I want to be careful here because some of us have been told to be still when what the situation actually required was our voice or courage or presence at the table. So I am not offering this scripture as a permission for you to go quiet when you're actually needed. What I am offering is this. There's a difference between the stillness of silence in yourself and the stillness of centering yourself. One diminishes you and the other restores you. And so Psalms 46 is an invitation to the second kind, the kind of stillness that makes your next move wiser, not smaller. So instead of saying, this is just the way I am, when you're being intentional, you learn to shift your perspective to what is really showing up. And so a few quiet breaths between how you respond to something that arrives in your inbox makes a difference. A short walk with your shoes off before you send that message, or maybe for you, it's a moment of stillness before the next decision. So I invite you to ask yourself, what is actually happening beneath this pressure, and what does it need from me today? Practice 2, harvest wisdom. Reflect before you respond. The most overlooked leadership intelligence you have access to right now is not a new book or consultant or cohort. It is your own history. Harvest wisdom is the practice of treating your lived experience as primary data, not sentiment, but actual evidence of what has worked and what it has cost you, and what this season is asking of you to do differently. One of the reasons why our response to pressure can feel so disorienting during seasons of transition is that we're comparing ourselves to a version of ourselves who no longer lives in this same season. And so taking time to draw insight from your faith, mentors, or ancestors, and the seasons you have already survived frames wisdom not as something you produce under pressure, but something you receive, you gather, and you stored. And so I'm learning that when we stand on that path, barefoot, covered in the evidence that life has not asked permission before it disrupts, your composure, that's how we get to harvest wisdom. That's how we are reminded to pay attention when we're grounded. And sometimes it's a 5-minute moment of reflection, honest, unhurried, without an agenda, can restore more vision, energy, and clarity than 2 hours of anxious problem solving. And so I'd like to invite you to check out my 40-day journal. It's the Journal of a Transforming Woman. And it's a place where you get to feel seen, where you can name what's going on during the course of your day. And so I invite you to ask yourself, what has your lived experience already taught you about how to move through this kind of pressure, and what wisdom do you need to gather right now, not manufacture, but receive? That may be your most honest starting point. I found that to be that way for me. Practice 3, release patterns. Let what no longer serves you go. I love morning walks, especially before the sunrise, or an afternoon when I can take off my shoes and feel the earth beneath my feet, or early evening when the light is beginning to soften and the day is preparing to rest. I love all of life. Do not underestimate the gift of knowing what time of the day helps you release, renew, and return to yourself. Because the way you begin the morning or close your evening has more influence on your response to pressure than most of us realize. What I found is that release pattern is the practice of gently, intentionally letting go of inherited reactive or fear-based responses, the ones that once protected you but may no longer be relevant and effective in the season that you're in. That laugh on the path, that involuntarily undignified full body laugh, that was the release pattern I needed but did not plan for. And it did more for my leadership that afternoon than any debrief, strategy session, or any carefully composed response to the pressure I had been holding. And I've also noticed that a single unprocessed interaction, an email I never responded to with calm, or a conversation I rehearsed instead of release, can pull me quietly into fear, defensiveness, or even tension before I even realize it has happened. Maybe you know that feeling as well. This is not about manufacturing positivity. It is about asking honestly and without shame, what are you still carrying? that you were never meant to carry into this journey and this season that you're in. Maybe for you is asking a trusted friend or colleague to help before the pressure builds, or maybe choosing a brief grounding ritual instead of rehearsing what went wrong, or giving yourself permission to put something down, even if it's just for a few minutes, so you can go on a barefoot walk and have bird poop on you as well. So ask yourself, what pattern do I keep reaching for when pressure arises? Just ask that. And how should I be responding in this season? Because these practices do not need to be scripted, perfect, or lengthy. My hope is that it will bring you a little bit more peace, a little bit more steadiness, and a little bit more clarity when pressure finds you, so that you make choices that strengthens you rather than depletes you in the season that you're in. The goal is never a perfect response to pressure. The goal is a pattern that actually supports you in living and leading with more intentionality. That's my goal for all of us, and the one that I am practicing on a daily basis, because many women in leadership are carrying both emotional and physical weight of the seasons that overlap in ways that are genuinely demanding. So maybe you're caring for children, your grandchildren, your aging parents, or beloved community members, while also stewarding organization, relationship, and callings. Our bodies feel it. Our spirits carry more than we often mean out aloud. And there are days when I ask myself, honestly, Leonie, am I responding to this pressure from a place of urgency or from a place of rest? Is it from fear or wisdom? Because the outcomes and the woman I am becoming in this process depends on that answer. Think about that for a moment. What season are you in? And how are you responding during this season? Most of the pressure you're feeling right now, it comes from urgency and the expectations of people who are measuring your output. But the question underneath the pressure, the one worth sitting with, is a question of, what is this appointed season in my life and leadership actually here to teach me? Because when we answer that question honestly, the pressure does not disappear, but it changes shape. It stops being the enemy and starts being information. So here's the simplest leadership truth I can offer you today. Do not shame yourself for the way you have always responded to pressure. That response kept you going in seasons that were genuinely hard. Honor it and then ask with kindness and not condemnation whether it's still the wisest response available to you right now. Because that is how intentional transformation actually begins. Not with a complete overhaul, but with one wise decision at a time. So ask yourself, what is my next wise response? Not the fastest, not the most impressive, not the one that proves you have it all together, just the wisest one available to you in this moment. I want to pause here because what I just described is not something most leaders can do alone. Not because you lack the capacity, but because the culture we lead in does not always make space for this kind of work. It celebrates the hustle and rewards the output, but it rarely asks you how you're actually doing beneath all the pressure that you're carrying. And this is one of the reasons why 5 years ago, I created the Women Achieve Intentional Transformation Mentorship Program for leaders who are looking for simple, practical, spiritual, grounded encouragement and Christian resources and insight for everyday pressure that shape how you live and lead with intention. And so I'll share more over the next couple of weeks, but for now, just know that the program is being relaunched and I will be integrating in a journal my thread, the thread book, the self-help book, and there are 3 versions of the thread book. One is my memoir, one is for leadership, and one is faith-based driven. And then I'll also have the workbook as well as the coloring book, videos on my YouTube channel, and some audio lessons as well. I'm really excited about offering these books in both paperback and ebook. So if you're on a healing journey towards wholeness, I will leave the link below for those who feel ready to take that step, and you can grab a copy of any of those books that I just mentioned and more that's on my website as well. My friends, if you're in a season where you desire to be more peaceful, more intentional and grounded in how you respond to pressure, you do not have to overhaul your entire life in a single day. I want to encourage you, give yourself permission to stop rushing past the season you're actually in, and just for a few minutes, just slow down, pay attention, and acknowledge the season that you're in. And if you're unsure, just ask God, what season am I in? Because small intention is still intention. Pressure does not always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it is a messenger asking you to slow down, to pay attention, to inquire of it before you push past it. To ask pressure, what are you here to teach me? What do I need to release? What is the pattern that I keep reaching for? And sometimes if you're lucky, a bird might poop on your head and remind you. I hope not. Well, maybe it's not a bad thing. After all, it wasn't for me. So here is my question for you, and I want you to respond in the comments. And be honest, you don't have to be polished. What is the one pattern you keep reaching for under pressure that you already know deep down is no longer serving you? You don't have to fix it today, just name it. That naming is your beginning. If you know another leader who might need this conversation today, please share this episode with them. I would so appreciate it. And if you have not yet subscribed, please do so. And if this resonated, leave us a comment and let us know. We appreciate, and I always enjoy reading your emails, but go ahead and leave your comments as well. I know some of you are a little bit shy, but here's one thing I'd like to leave with you. My grandmother used to say that you cannot read a quilt from a square. You have to step back and you have to see the whole pattern before you understand what the designer, what their intention was. So my friend, step back. The pressure you are in right now is not the whole quilt. It is a square. And the pattern your life is weaving is far more intentional, far more beautiful, and far more purposeful than this single moment of pressure and the pressure that you're seeing. So I will see you next time on the Achieve Intentional Transformation podcast. And as always, thank you for your gift, the presence of your time and your contributions. Have a beautiful day, and may the Lord continue to bless you and bless the works of your hands. Take care now, my friends.